Can the ongoing mess at the White House get any worse? Hunter Biden says, hold my beer. The first son joining Joe Biden at the Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House just moments ago. This comes as a stunning new report reveals the felon first son has been joining West Wing meetings with his dad and top aides. He even popped onto important phone calls with advisors. This has been happening since both returned from Camp David on Monday. One source telling the New York Post, quote, Hunter doesn't trust his father's old guard of aides. I think Hunter wants to be there, and POTUS isn't going to say no. For her part, KJP blames the holiday.
Why is the president's son involved?
Look, the president, as you know, is very close to his family. He spent time with his family, as you all know and reported, at Camp David. Hunter came back with him and walked with him into that meeting, that speech prep, and he ended up spending time with his dad and his family that night. That is basically what happened.
The question, though, would be, is he participating in meetings with senior advisors?
What I can say is that he came back with his dad from Camp David. He walked him into the speech prep, and he was in the room.
Tom, this is not an anonymous source. This is Michael LaRosa, who worked for Jill Biden as a spokesman. He told the National Review, this is a quote, "Oh, that's pretty normal. I think he leans on Hunter for advice often." My question to you is pretty simple. If a man needs someone who's self-proclaimed as smoked more Parmesan cheese than anyone he knows, if he needs that person for advice, things are pretty bad.
Well, he's also just been through it. I mean, he just was found guilty. He's facing jail time, so they can commiserate over the troubles that they're having. That's number one. I think Hunter knows a couple of things about hangover cures, and so he's probably a good guy to have the morning after, and so he's there at Camp David. I think Hunter wants to be there more than Joe wants Hunter there. You understand? Yeah. So he wants to be around his dad. And I can also assume him saying things like, hey, Dad, remember when you said you wouldn't pardon me under any circumstances? You were just kidding, right, Dad? I mean, that's something that he has a lot riding on this.
Maybe he wants to pardon before Joe forgets that Hunter's his son. Yeah. Maybe it's just heading downhill.
So just keep reminding him.
Judge, is there a national security threat? I know that the president has a lot of leeway on what is classified and what isn't. Is there any threat to have Hunter Biden, not necessarily because of this felony, but because of everything else on the laptop that he's admitted is true? Is there any national security threat to having him in on these meetings?
I think that Jillian can probably speak better to that aspect, but I'm very concerned about the fact that you've got Hunter, who's been taking money from countries, Uzbekistan, Romania, Russia, as well as China, and where Burisma was. And here's the problem. I mean, this kid is a former crack addict. He's a serial liar. He lied on the gun forms. He's being accused of lying on his taxes. I mean, this guy should not be involved in any discussions. And, yesterday it was like, oh, he just walked his dad into the meeting. Then we find out from people they're gaslighting us again. He's in on the meetings. He's in on the phone calls. And I got to tell you, Joe Biden thinks he's the smartest guy that he knows. And so if Hunter doesn't trust the aides, this is going to create nothing but a mess in the White House. But I think the most important part of this is I found an article written by Karine Jean-Pierre a few years ago, and the name of the article is What It's Like Working for a Doomed Presidential Candidate. She's talking about John Edwards and Anthony Weiner, but here's the quote that I think is so telling for people who question Karine Jean-Pierre. You show up at the office, you're pumped, you attack the phones, you deliberately put pep in your voice, everything is going great. We blatantly lie to the movers and shakers we were calling, but the more we try, the less it helped. I mean, that tells you how she handles presidential campaigns.
How can you have the misfortune of working for Anthony Weiner and John Edwards? I would like
when you develop a certain set of skills, they're in need, I guess. Jillian, what do you think about it?
I think the crucial thing about this moment really is not just about the president, what his family wants him to do, what he decides to do. It's about the fact that down-ballot Democrats are now widely in peril, and they're feeling the pressure, and anything he decides is going to have tremendous implications for the rest of the party. We had reporting, Fox had reporting today from Hill sources that said Democrats in safe and swing states are now drafting letters today. They're preparing letters to deliver to the White House to formally ask the president to step aside. We also had reporting from our Hill reporters today that they are considering, I guess, the possibility that if the president, I want to make sure I get this right for you guys, they want the president, they're sort of biding their time because they want the president to come to the conclusion first himself and then talk to him about it. They don't want to be the ones to bring it up to him directly. So it's a kind of ominous cloud of circumstances now. He's operating under tremendous pressure, but it's not really just about him and his family. It's a much bigger problem, obviously.
You know, Richard, I guess empathy or sympathy should be a part of the conversation. I don't know that I believe that because I don't have a lot of empathy for him as a guy that's been around for 50 years in politics. But there was another anonymous report, and I hate those as much as you do, but that Jill and Hunter specifically were huddling around him and telling him, you need to be in this race, you don't need to drop out. If there's any modicum of truth to that, that means they're with him a lot. And now we know Hunter's in on this meeting. We have a headline from back in February 2021 where Biden did an interview with People magazine, and it was reported by CNN, and it said no family members will be involved in any government decisions. And I think it even said foreign policy. I mean, is that Wayback Machine, is it wrong? Was he lying about that?
I think there's I think there's a clear bright line here. I mean, I think that you want your family around you in trying times. So don't we all want our family around us in trying times, whenever that is? And so I think that's why you saw him go to Camp David. He had a really tough debate night. We all saw it. We all watched it. And I think one thing where you want to be is you want to be with your family. If I'm having a tough day, I want to be around my mom. Period. But I do think Jillian brings up a good point that's worth talking about, because in this moment, if you look at the congressional map, it is very likely that Democrats will regain the House. If the election were to happen today, Democrats need to pick up 5 seats to regain the House. That is likely going to happen, right? And I think for Democrats in this moment, the reason why I think
the status quo.
Yeah, right. No, I think even if the election were today, Democrats would regain the House. There's a seat, there's a pickup in Alabama, likely a pickup in Louisiana, likely, and they would need to win 3 seats in New York, which seem likely in this moment, right? And so I think there's some nerves with Democratic leadership in the House of Representatives to say, how do we maintain this lead that we have in many of these House races? Beyond that, there's a number of Senate races where the senators are outperforming the president. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin.
So are they going to separate
Sherrod Brown in Ohio. I think there's some of that seems to be happening, which is why they're waiting for the president to make some decisions, which is why I think you see governors going to meet with the president today, because they also too see the possibility of them losing some governor's mansions if the president doesn't make a decision soon.
That's a great pivot from a crackhead in the Oval. I appreciate that. All right.
Anonymous. Anonymous. Proclaim. Proclaim. Commiserate. Commiserate. Leeway. Leeway. Doomed. Doomed. Pep. Pep. Blatantly. Blatantly. Peril. Peril. Abiding. Abiding. Ominous. Ominous. Modicum. Modicum. Disguise. Disguise.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.